Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia and welcome to a brand new series on the channel. Today, we're kicking off our first ever Let's Talk Lore series, covering the 8 Princes DLC for Total War 3 Kingdoms. If you're new to the channel, let me provide you with a little background. My name is Serious Trivia and I make YouTube videos for the game Total War 3 Kingdoms. Aside from the standard Let's Play videos, my main goal is to produce guides for the game to share my knowledge so that you can enjoy the game more. With the imminent release of the new major DLC for the game, I thought this gave me the perfect opportunity to expand my content, as I would also love to share my knowledge about the turbulent historical period that provides such a rich backdrop for the game. If you're like me, then one of the main draws of these historical strategy games is the history behind the game. So given how the 8 Princes cover a rather obscure period of Chinese history, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to launch this series to help you familiarize yourself to the lore, characters, and history of this little known but wildly entertaining time period. If you're not a gamer but love to learn about this historical time period, then this series would also be perfect for you, as this series will solely focus on discussion of history and not gameplay. Here I have laid out all 8 episodes of this series. Each episode will air at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel every weekday starting today, and will promptly end on August 7th or the eve of the 8 Princes DLC release. For those of you who are itching for game content, once the DLC releases, we'll be launching a new Let's Play series featuring one of the 8 Princes, along with new guides covering the new units, reform system, and other changes in the DLC. In the meantime, let's jump straight into episode 1. Now, the 8 Princes DLC cover a period of Chinese history that occurred in the Jin Dynasty. In Chinese, it was known as 八王之乱, which can be directly translated to the chaos of the 8 kings. The title of king in Chinese history is given a much less weight than Western history. In Chinese history, there are one ruler who is the emperor, and below that, there could be many kings. Therefore, the title of king, or Wang, could be seen as the Western equivalent of lords. I think the game designers wanted to avoid this confusion, so they simply named the DLC 8 Princes, as princes who were not in line to become the emperor were often given these titles of king. Moving forward in this series, we will be using the terms Wang, kings, lords, and princes pretty interchangeably. But if you're still confused, just know that there is the emperor who is above everyone else, and then there are kings who are more like lords. This chaotic period lasted 16 years, from 291 to 306. If you notice the date, the start of this DLC pack is over 100 years from the start of the 3 Kingdoms time period. So I believe the best way to tell this story is to start with the founding of the Jin Dynasty and its founding emperor, Sima, who was the father to 3 of the 8 princes. Now, who was Sima? Everyone who is familiar with the base game or with the 3 Kingdoms period have heard of Sima Yi. Sima Yan is Sima Yi's grandson, as shown by the family tree here. This tree is only a portion of the Sima family clan. We will expand on this tree as the series progresses, as we introduce new characters to the story. But for the purpose of this episode, this small portion of the tree will do just fine. Now, there is a common misconception that Sima Yi usurped the Cao family throne and eventually became emperor. But he actually didn't live to see that happen. Despite living to 73 years old, which was a long time back in those days, Sima Yi served diligently under the Cao family rule his entire life. He did launch a coup 2 years prior to his death, but his motivations were driven by survival and resulted only in the death of the regent Cao Shuang, and did not impact the emperor Cao Fang. After his death, however, his sons Sima Shi and Sima Zhao continued to expand their family's political and military powers with the intention of taking over the kingdom of Wei from the Cao family. But it wasn't until Sima Zhao finally died in year 265 that his eldest son, Sima Yan, made the ultimate move to usurp the throne from the 19-year-old Cao Huan to finally become emperor and herald in the Jin Dynasty. The year 265 was a critical moment for the Sima clan. With the death of their leader Sima Zhao, there was a debate of who should take over as clan leader. Historically and culturally speaking, China has had a tradition of passing the torch on to the firstborn son. When the firstborn son is unavailable because of an early death, then the next eldest son takes up the mantle. In the rare occasions where there are no sons, then historically there has been cases where the torch is instead passed to a younger brother. If we look back at Sima Yi's family tree, we see that Sima Shi was Sima Yi's eldest son. After Sima Yi's death, he became the clan leader. However, unfortunately, Sima Shi does not have any sons. He and his wife, Xiahou Wei, has 5 kids who all happen to be daughters. Sensing this to be an issue, Sima Shi asked his younger brother, Sima Zhao, to pass on a son to him as an adopted son so that he could have an heir. Sima Zhao obliged and gave up his second-born son, Sima You, to his elder brother. So Sima You here is actually Sima Yan's little brother of the same mother. A little trivia point here is that Sima Yan and Sima You's mother was the granddaughter of Wang Lang. If you have played the Total War 3 Kingdoms game, this is the same Wang Lang that starts the game as a faction leader in Pengcheng Commandery bordering Cao Cao. However, following Sima Shi's early death at age 48 from a tumor around his eye, the Sima clan made the decision to let Sima Zhao become the clan leader, because Sima You at the time was only 8 years old. Sima Zhao did promise at the time to eventually pass the position back to Sima You when he dies, as Sima You is his son after all too. However, 10 years later, in the year 265, Sima Zhao dies at age 55 and passes the clan leader position instead to Sima Yan, who will in the same year lead a bloodless coup that will usurp the throne. This part of the story is very important because here is where the first seed of discord between family members occur and serves as a foreshadowing to the 8 princes civil war that is to come. There are many reasons why Sima Zhao eventually went back on his word and passed the position to Sima Yan. First, after years of managing the clan, the Sima clan has become the de facto rulers of Kingdom of Wei, and the time to take the final leap toward becoming emperor was ripe. If we compare the 2 sons at the time of Sima Zhao's death, both Sima Yan and Sima You were capable leaders. Sima You, who is now 18, was a sensitive young man with a caring heart and a talent for literature. And although he has shown flashes of his capabilities as a capable administrator, he was largely unproven and lacked military experience. Sima Yan, on the other hand, was 30 and had a career serving as a general in the military. We have to remember that at this time, the kingdom of Wu was still around and the 3-kingdom period has not concluded, so it made sense that an older and more military capable heir was needed for the Sima clan. Aside from this pragmatic reason, Sima Zhao probably had a more selfish one as well. Knowing the Sima clan will soon take the throne, Sima Zhao knew that if Sima You became emperor, then he will claim his lineage to Sima Shi, who will then be posthumously given the title and honor of emperor, and Sima Zhao himself will forever be just a king or lord in the history books. Another concern he might have is that if Sima You becomes emperor, then Sima Yan, who is 12 years his senior and born from the same father and mother, will now have to bow down to his younger brother for the rest of his life. Fearing that might eventually become a problem, Sima Zhao decided on his deathbed to make Sima Yan his heir. So Sima Yan takes over in 265, and by the end of the same year, he leads a bloodless rebellion in the same way that Cao Pi stole the throne from then the puppet emperor of the Han Dynasty and became Emperor Wu of Jin. Without going into too much detail of how to read Chinese and write Chinese out with English letters, the word Wu, spelled W-U, and the kingdom of Wu, also spelled with W-U, are 2 different words when written in Chinese, and they have nothing to do with each other. So here, Sima Yan's title of Emperor Wu of Jin simply means he intends to be a military-focused emperor of the Jin Dynasty, as Wu has the meaning of military. Jin was picked as the name of their dynasty because historically most Chinese dynasties were named based on the place of power that the family originated from. The Sima clan originated from Henei Commandery, and historically this land was named Jin. Later, Sima Zhao was also granted the title of Duke of Jin. So once Sima Yan ascended to the throne, it was only natural that he names their family's dynasty as Jin. As the emperor, a lot of decisions had to be made, but one of the most critical ones was the decision to subdivide the empire and restore the feudalism structure used by the Han Dynasty. Shortly after becoming emperor, Sima Yan handed out the titles of king or lords to around 30 members of the Sima clan, from his granduncles, uncles, brothers, and sons. He granted each of them a commandery to rule over as a small kingdom that would support the central government. Now, to clarify, he did not grant any of them independence. But if you want a Game of Thrones reference, you can think of these titles and land grants as those of the 7 kingdoms in Westeros, where all 7 kingdoms bent the knee to the Iron Throne. Here, Sima Yan believed that by giving out these titles to members of his clan, he would be able to increase the power of the Sima clan and ensure that no outsider can usurp their throne, like how Cao Pi and himself had done to the previous 2 ruling dynasties. Knowing the civil war to come, we might in hindsight think Sima Yan made a dumb decision here. But if we step into Sima Yan's shoes, we can see that he was actually a student of history. We can see here that the Qin, or the first dynasty of China, ended the warring state period and united all of China under one rule. Because of the fractured state of China that they had to put an end to, they decided to do away with the feudalism system and established a centralized government and subdivided the land into localized commandery governments. However, this centralized model did not work, as the Qin dynasty only lasted 15 years. The Han dynasty that followed kept the commandery structure that was established by the Qin dynasty, but resumed feudalism by handing out titles and lands to members of the ruling family, as well as other powerful nobles. This is why we see so many factions in the Three Kingdoms game with the family name of Liu, as they were all members of the ruling family that was granted land and titles. Despite the chaos that resulted in the Three Kingdoms era, this system lasted for 400 years and is considered to be the most successful system to date. Next is a case study that Sima Yan is most familiar with in the kingdom of Wei. Cao Pi, who was Cao Cao's son and first emperor of Wei, also tried to copy Han's system, but he decided against giving out lordships and titles to family members. There was a good reason for him to do this, because when Cao Cao died suddenly of a brain tumor, Cao Pi found himself with little actual power, because most of the armies and powers were in the hands of his uncles, like Cao Zhen, Cao Hong, Cao Ren, Xiahou Dun, and Xiahou Yuan. The leadership and charisma that Cao Cao had used to keep everyone in line was lacking with his death. Cao Pi now finds himself as emperor, but without real power, and he wants the power that his uncles are hesitant to relinquish. So Cao Pi seeks the help of outsiders like Sima Yi to slowly reduce the powers of his uncles to secure his own power. Obviously, we now know how this ended, as Cao Pi died of a young age of 39 and left a series of incapable young heirs who now didn't have the necessary family support to prevent the Sima clan's rise to power, and the Cao Wei dynasty only lasted 46 years. So Sima Yan wanted to learn from all these mistakes and eventually decided to copy the Han structure with minor adaptations that fitted the political climate of the time. Under the Han structure, although family members were given lordships, they were not allowed to keep a military force. However, given that we're still in the Three Kingdoms era and the country remained at war, it was necessary to allow these new Sima lords to keep their own armies so they can defend their land and assist the throne in times of need. It made sense at the time, but as we will soon see, this planted the seed for the Eight Princes Civil War because now everyone who is anyone had their own private armies. The next critical moment comes in year 279, as it was the year that the kingdom of Wu finally surrenders to Jin, and the kingdom long divided unites once again. The three-kingdom era finally comes to a close. There were many major consequences that came out of this event, but there are two key ones that are most relevant to our discussion of the 8 princes. The first one is rather obvious. With the kingdom finally united, there was no longer a need to maintain so many standing armies, so a decision was made to disband most of the armed forces except for the armies of the Sima kings or lords. Sima Yan believed that if most of the military might in the country remained within the Sima clan, then no one would have a chance to usurp the throne. He was not wrong to think this way, as there had been many rebellions led by powerful generals who were against the Sima clan prior to them taking over the throne from the Cao family. However, this move weakened the centralized government's military powers, but in the time of peace, no one noticed a thing. The second issue was a natural evolution of the human nature. Once united, the land was allowed to heal from war. Economy thrived and wealth poured into the land. Following that influx of wealth, the government became corrupt both morally and financially. Led by none other than Sima Yan himself, what once was a hard-working and capable emperor now surrounds himself with concubines. With close to 10,000 concubines, he was unable to make the decision of where to spend the night. So he made himself a cart and had goats pull him around the palace, and wherever the goats would stop, he would spend the night with the concubines who resided there. So soon, concubines who wished to be noticed by the emperor placed leaves doused with salt around their doors to attract these goats who pulled the carts. The corruption spread beyond the palace, as noblemen now compared their wealth as a part of a competition. One man was known to spend over 10,000 coppers a day just on food, simply to showcase his wealth to others. Upon his death, his son decided to up the budget to 20,000 coppers a day. This level of waste and corruption left the kingdom weak and ripe for chaos. But none of these events acted as the trigger point for the 8 princes civil war. To understand that, please come back tomorrow as we once again talk about the issue of naming heirs and the famous idiot emperor Sima Zhong. This concludes episode 1 of the 8 Princes edition of Let's Talk Lore. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel to support the channel and to get notifications when new videos are released. Thank you again for watching, and see y'all next time. Bye.